Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic on this Tuesday, November 11th. And, just a beautiful day down here in Miami as we are at the studios and getting ready for another fine show. I will say, man, I was listening to the postgame. When I was doing my riff last night, I didn't listen to postgame, just did the recap. But I thought some very interesting things said on both sides of things, to be honest with you, between the Heat and the Lakers on what they were talking about. And, first of all, LeBron James whining about the referees and the officiating yesterday. And look, if you're a Lakers fan and you want to get into that, that's fine. But I will say, it was pretty easy to tell in that fourth quarter and throughout that game that the refs were being very sensitive and that they did have a quick trigger. I'm not saying it's right one way or the other, but what I will say is, for the GOAT, the best player in the world, the all-time leading scorer, who always has a temperature of the game and how things are going. You would think that after all the basketball that this guy has been through, that you would understand, the refs be a little sensitive tonight, a little bit in their feelings. And that you just kind of have to get your teammates and your coaches in a place where, they're controlling. Tyler got teed up, too. Tyler had a huge mistake for the Miami Heat that really could have ended up costing him in that game. That's aside from the fact that he was throwing alley-oops basically over the backboard yesterday. So I just thought it was funny to hear LeBron talk about something to the effect of the things that, we had a lot of things that weren't in our control that cost us this game. And, all right, you had a lot of things that you could have controlled. You also, much like the Heat, who didn't score for the last 4 minutes, you didn't score for the last 3 minutes either. So we could sit here and you could quibble over the 4 points that you gave away because your teammates and your coach and you rolling the ball in the wrong direction could cost your team 4 points. But, what else happened in those last 3 minutes that didn't happen? You had wide open threes that you didn't knock down. So I just thought that was hilarious to hear after the game. He's talking about, well, that's the game right there. That's 4 points. It's wow, okay. In a game where it's maybe in a playoff game, I could see that being a thing where you're being that petty about things. But it was hilarious to hear that he was genuinely bothered, and I think he is. What is it? I saw Heat vs. Haters put out the statistic that LeBron James all time in Miami, and I'm assuming this is only the games that he's played because Lord knows he's sat a lot of games, is 2-7 since leaving the Heat in 2014. And this was a good game. It was a good game back and forth between, you had LeBron and you had Jimmy Butler taking each other on, defending each other. Spo was even saying, he's like, I got to be honest with you, surprised LeBron took on the challenge of Jimmy Butler. I was like, shade. But because he said, look, there's plenty of ducking in this league. Jimmy Butler's not ducking anybody. And you saw it, Jimmy on LeBron. You saw Bam on Anthony Davis, of course, when he was able to play because, Anthony Davis, there's going to be points where he won't play. But I did find that I found that a very interesting comment from Erik Spoelstra in the post matchup, and Jimmy says, I always enjoy that competition, and LeBron's honestly gotten the best of me when it matters. He made that a point. It's he's gotten the best of me when it matters, and that's definitely been a tough pill to swallow. That 2020 finals where Jimmy, I think, really did elevate himself in a lot of people's eyes because people looked at him coming to Miami and people were saying, oh, he's going to retire. Why would you go there? And we have such iconic moments from that of him hunched over, giving everything he's got with a banged-up Heat team with Bam with one arm, no Goran Dragic, who was the leading scorer for the Heat in that playoffs. But I just found it funny. And there was the comments before the game, too, which were interesting from LeBron, which were, he said a lot of complimentary things, but then was also he also said that he feels that he would have been what he is no matter what. This is from the Miami Herro. He says, I learned a lot from being here. It was great times. Obviously, my 4 years were great times. Playing for a franchise under Spo, being with D. Wade, CB, UD, so many other guys. We definitely did some good things that are really special to me. It's a big part of my career. He said, I think I just grew. I was 25 years old when I came here. I was still a kid. Even though that it was 7 years in, I was still a kid. I came here for one reason, and that was to win championships. That was my goal. The only reason I teamed up with D. Wade and Bosch because I felt I couldn't do it in Cleveland. So I had an opportunity to do it. That was not only best for my career. I had an opportunity to be a free agent. I did what I thought was not only best for my career, but for me at that point. I was 25. I came down here. I get an opportunity to learn, and still what I have learned, I know I am a student of the game, and I know that I wasn't coming down here. Like I didn't know anything. I spent 25 years in Northeast Ohio to high school, 7 years with the Cavs. It was the only place that I knew, so the culture change was for me. People talk about heat culture and the culture change period. I was changing everything in my life for the first time in my life. He then said some, nothing that we didn't know there. He also did say that for the Heat, he says that he thinks that they're in the realm of best franchises in sports, the Spurs, the Steelers, the Patriots. He says, I think those are the only franchise that you could say have the same stability as the Miami Heat. Then Anthony Chang writes, he says, while James credited the Heat for helping him grow as a player, he made it clear that his NBA longevity was not a product of lessons learned while in Miami. I didn't need to learn that here. I didn't learn anything about that. I've always taken care of my body. I've been stretching, icing, taking care of my body since I was in 8th grade. I think I'd still be playing at this level no matter what if I had come here or not. Let's not get it twisted. The 4 years here were amazing. I loved everything about it. I love this franchise. This franchise is top tier, and it's one of the best franchises in the world. But as far as my career was going to be my career as far as individuality because I know how much I put into the game, and I know how much I strive to be great. But as far as what I was able to learn here, it's second to none for me for sure. So, some people took that as LeBron was taking, that he would have won without coming here. I know that's definitely somehow the aggregators had put it. And if he is putting it like that, absolute nonsense because, you did have 7 years in Cleveland and you kept banging your head against the wall and you couldn't do it. And when he came to the Miami Heat, I think people do forget, and I know it's crazy to be in a digital world where it's like you don't think of this guy being in the GOAT argument or even being close, but this guy was being laughed at every single year that he was getting bounced. He was. The way that he walked off the court in Boston, how he was in that Boston series especially, the guy was getting mocked. He'd had, those amazing years early on where he, of course, beat the Pistons and was able to get to that Spurs finals, and that was incredible. I mean, don't get me wrong. LeBron was, bar none, the best guy in the league. But as far as the winning, the comparisons to Michael Jordan, if you think that stuff is crazy now, think about what was back then where he didn't have even any ammunition to be in these arguments. And it didn't happen until he got to the Miami Heat. And people were pissed that he came to the Miami Heat. And he didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that he had to deal with all that scrutiny and all that hate and all that that criticism that came with it. But yeah, his work I think is second to none. I don't think anybody in the Heat organization, Erik Spoelstra has talked about that and raved about that ever since he left. So will LeBron James be here 20 years in and be the all-time? Probably statistically, yeah, he'd be the all-time leading scorer. Nobody is doing what he could do physically. I don't think anybody has an explanation for the type of work that he puts into his body and that he's able to do this other than he is just the freakest of freaks. But the winning stuff, there was a lot of things that he just wasn't going to get if he didn't have his stint down here in Miami. And would he be at this position? Would he be a guy would he have ever won a championship? Maybe. I don't know. Would he have won 4? Probably not. He went back to Cleveland, and as impressive as it was that he was able to beat a depleted East that was not even close to what he faced when he was in Miami, he only won one championship. He only won one championship. And you talk about, look at the Warriors team that he's facing on. He was taking, all right, fine. We could, ifs and buts were candy and nuts, whatever. He only won one championship going back there after learning it this way and learning from the Heat way. The Heat, for whatever you want to say about how they, you don't think that they deserve the credit or whatever, which is stupid. It's been the most successful run he's had with any franchise. He was here for 4 years, got to the finals every year, and won 2 championships, and probably should have won 3 if he would have showed up in one of them. So it's an interesting thing that will always be this crux in his career, this thing that is looked upon that people really hated him for, but was, I think we can all say, was the best version of this incredible player who's going to have this unbelievable legacy, and maybe will end up being looked upon as the greatest player of all time, or definitely will be in the argument always for one of the greatest players of all time. But this stint down here is probably always going to be looked upon as the most interesting part of his career, because he had to go through all those character traits. It was his first run at the championship. Wade and LeBron are an iconic duo forever, and it's just one of these things where I just kind of like look and be like, all right, well, you can't tell the story of LeBron James without talking about the Miami Heat. And it does feel like a lot of the times when the harken backs are there and they look back on certain times, it does feel like this is always the part of the career they try and kind of just brush over as they add on the tack on parts of his career with the rings. But, make no mistake, where he is now and being in those arguments of GOAT and all that doesn't happen without his stint down here. It doesn't. But mostly was cool praise from him. He said last night, too, also that he actually started off his press conference last night quoting Pat Riley with his main thing is the main thing, which is now like on the Heat jerseys. And he also said that Erik Spoelstra was one of his favorite coaches. So most of the stuff was very, very complimentary. But man, a lot of whining about the refs last night. Boo-hoo. It was funny, too, hearing Erik Spoelstra, because Erik Spoelstra had this quote that he had, which I thought was kind of funny, because he was asked about the idea of Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler, who were all awesome last night. The Heat probably played their most complete game, even with that rough fourth quarter, which has been their biggest crux all season. But it's interesting because he talked about the Heat's big three giving us time and it will be a problem. And I just found that to be an interesting quote, because these guys have been playing together and have been the top three guys on this team now. Definitely been the top three guys on the team for 3 years now. Since Tyler was sixth man of the year, this has been your big three. You just haven't had it in the playoffs. But this was Erik Spoelstra's quote about it.
Yeah, that'd be part of it. Give us enough time. That big three is going to be a problem. They're already working diligently to figure this out. They complement each other, which is great. And the most important thing is, this year it's really clicking for them to understand that they're the key, to this team. We have so many X factors on this team, guys that really can make a difference. But they're the ones, so those three guys, their collaboration, their competitive will, they're going to be the reason, for our ultimate success.
It's a very interesting thing to hear from Erik Spoelstra, because you talk about guys that have played this is their fifth season together, but let's just say that they're three as the big three of the Miami Heat. To say that they need time to get together, and I get what he's saying conceptually, because it's like knowing that Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler have to be the thing that carries us. Normally it's the Heat are, the sum of their parts, everybody contributing, everybody being a part of it. But I think that this is maybe the first year we're really looking at this as, no, we don't have a shot on most nights if we don't get Jimmy, Bam, Tyler together, working together to make us something dangerous. We need not only to be, hey, it's a Caleb Martin on a certain night or a Haywood Highsmith, because you look at last night and it's like all these, we haven't had Caleb back. The Heat haven't had Caleb back. They benched Kevin Love. They have Haywood Highsmith, who is basically a pure 3-and-D guy, where he's going to shoot those open shots, but that's about it. Duncan has done a great job with that second unit so far. Kyle Lowry had some really, really key moments in that game, but we know that his offensive punch is going to be minimal. Those three guys are going to be the offensive punch. And maybe in other years it would be, all right, Bam does the little things and somebody else is going to step up, and Jimmy does the little things and somebody else is going to step up, and Tyler, is he on? Is he off tonight? How else could he? Those three guys need to be the engine. So I found that to be an interesting quote from Erik Spoelstra to talk about that they need time. Well, they've been together, but I do think that there's something to the idea of they need to be together, complementing, because as we've talked about with Jimmy and Bam, they don't shoot threes. They're great defensively. They seem to fit on a floor together pretty well, but they need that third guy. And that third guy, I think, is the key to all of it, is a mature Tyler Herro. And Tyler's been off to a tremendous start so far. So it's interesting for Erik to put it like that, where it's like, oh, we give it, and it almost feels like when you're saying give it time, it's like give Tyler time to show that it is a big three, that it is not just the Jimmy and Bam show, that we got this dangerous trio that can wreak havoc on the league. So it was interesting stuff to hear from the Heat head coach last night.